Okay, so here I am, day 12? Yeah, day 12. The reading for today is chapter, let's see, 35 through 37. Here's some of my little alligator gummy baits. Let's see if you can see this. Little alligator gummy baits. They float in water. I got them for sale if you want them. Anyways, so I'm doing this right after my reading because I forget a lot of stuff that I would like to include in there. Even though I read it twice, once in the King James Version, once in the New American. I have a tendency of forgetting what I wanted to say about it. Not necessarily what was in there, but what I wanted to say about it. I try to make these videos short so you don't get bored about it. Okay, so chapter 35, 9 through 12. Now, this is the second story. There's some nonsense in the first 9 verses about God saying to Jacob, go make me what do you call it, an altar. And God sure doesn't need a lot of altars. He seems very insecure. He's always telling him to make altars. Anyways, telling everybody there to make altars. And, so he tells them to make altars, and then everybody has to give up everybody in the camp has to give up their gods and their idols and give them their gold and whatever, and he plants it under a tree. I don't know what that was all about. What was that nonsense all about? Is Jacob going to come back? Jake going to come back and steal it later? I mean, he's that dishonest. I wouldn't doubt it. And it says, anyways, so verse 9 through 12. Here's the second story of how God renamed Jake Israel. Now, where was it the first? The first reason was in, oh goodness, I should have written it down. The first reason was in another chapter where, oh, I can't find it now. It was before Esau. Jacob met Esau and thought Esau was going to kill him, and so he sent all these gifts ahead of him so his brother wouldn't kill him. The gifts of livestock. Let's see. Anyways, but anyways, so this second story, oh, here it is, right in front of me. Chapter 32, verse, what is it? Starts at 23 and goes to 32. Okay, so chapter 32, 23 through 33. That's the first story of how Jacob got the name Israel. It's when Jacob wrestled with an angel or God or some celestial being, and the angel touched his Jake's hip and put it out of joint and said, now your name's going to be Israel. Let's see, did he say Israel? Oh, yeah. Oh, no, maybe he didn't say, but as Israel, because you have continued, yep, divine, okay, yep, that was the first one, okay. I was rereading and thought maybe I made a mistake there. But anyway, so chapter 36, verse 9 through, 9 and 10 says, God appeared to Jake and says, "You're no longer called Jake, but Israel." And then he gave him another blessing. Like, Jake hasn't been blessed enough times. No wonder Jake's rich. God is looking out for this rapist con artist. God just keeps blessing him, no matter how. Every time he does wrong, it seems God blesses him just a little bit more. And so that was pretty much that for up until, let's see, chapter 16. It says Rachel went into some hard labor, and as she was dying from the labor, she had a son, otherwise this wouldn't even be mentioned. She died, and right before she died, she said she was going to name the child Benoni, right before she dies. But then selfish old Jake says, "No, we're not going to name him that. We're going to name him Benjamin." Okay, your wife just died giving birth to your son, and you're going to be that disrespectful that you're going to say, "Nah, I don't care. I'm going to name him this. I don't care what she named him. I don't care if she died giving birth to my son." And she was doing this while they were traveling. She was giving birth while they were traveling. So, whatever. I so hate Jake. But of course here, even after supposedly twice God said, "We're going to name you Israel," the Bible is still calling him Jacob. Go figure. Anyways, so this is a good one. They set up camp. Now they're calling him Israel. They go back and forth between, now they're going back and forth between Israel and the name Jacob. And I can see how people are getting confused. I was getting confused. It's like, is this Jacob or Israel? Anyways, so it says, Israel moved in pitches tent beyond some Migdal leader. While Israel was encamped in that region, Reuben went and lay, when it says a man went and lay with a woman, that means he raped her. Lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine. Bilhah was a slave. Bilhah was a sex slave. Let's get this straight. Bilhah was either Rachel or Leah's slave. And whoever owned her, whoever it was, Rachel or Leah, had given the slave to Jake so he could rape, so he'd have male offspring. Okay, so this was not, they're talking his concubine. That's a polite word for sex slave. Wife, another word for sex slave. Okay, women had absolutely zero say in who they married and when they had sex. That, by definition, is rape. Anyways, so Reuben had sex with his father's sex slave. Now, I'm surprised they even mention it here, because what does it matter? Women are raped all the time back then. I'm surprised they didn't say, "Oh, and she had a son with him." So, just some weird inbreeding crap here. Inbreeding rape. And it says, and Israel was offended. Not that she was raped, but that he had sex with something that was his. Anyways, so then I've been having a dry throat for the last few days. Let me go get some water. This winter dry humidity, air or atmosphere gives it to me every year. I deal with it. This year's been worse, though. So, 23 and on, well, just say the sons of Jacob were now 12. 23 and on sounds familiar because Esau had 12 too. It means 12 tribes of Esau. Supposedly. That's what it said before. Chapter 23 on to 29, basically the sons of Jacob. Now, chapter 36 is basically the son of Esau, which they're also calling him Edom. And now, I don't remember him being called Edom before this. Now, here's the gig. I wrote it down here. The lineage in 36, the lineage of Esau contradicts the lineage prior to this. And, I mean, I didn't do the research. The footnotes also note this, that there's other verses where this is contradictory. But the one I noticed was his first wife. Here they're saying it was Ada. But back in chapter 26, verse 34, Judith was his first wife. Both Ada and Judith were Hittites. And remember, his bigot parents didn't like him marrying, outbreeding. They wanted him to inbreed. And so they didn't like that. But, anyways, I don't know what else I'm here. It's just a bunch of, after I saw that first contradiction, I'm like, I'm just going to I just kind of breeze through there in both the Bibles. It wasn't going to make sense anyways. Judith doesn't make an appearance at all in these, in chapter 36. So that's one major contradiction in the Bible. And I call it major because, like, if you're talking, these are supposed to, this lineage thing, you know, and these 12 tribes and all this, these nations and stuff, oh, that's really important stuff. But the lineage isn't even consistent. So how, you know, they're saying it's all important, but it's not even consistent. This is supposed to be this major thing, right? Chapter 37, last chapter reading for today. Okay, now here's another contradiction. Chapter 37, it says verse 3, now they're going between, they're switching between the names Jacob and Israel for Jacob. It says 37:3, Israel loved Joseph the best of all his sons for his child of his old age. Contradictory, because the last child mentioned here was Benoit. I'm gonna use, Rachel died giving birth to this child. She gave her life for this child, so I'm gonna keep the name Rachel gave him, not that slut whore Jacob gave him. Okay, so the last child, or last son, because only sons matter here, remember. The last son Jacob had was Benoni. But here it's saying Jacob is the son of his old age. That's contradictory, okay, to what was previously written. Anyway, so supposedly Jake/Israel loved Joseph the best. Well, Joseph was a troublemaker, just like his father. Maybe that's why I loved him the best. He would constantly, he was supposed to be like the helper, the assistant to all the other brothers, as the other brothers were doing the livestock or whatever they were doing. Well, he'd constantly be telling on his brothers. He was a tattletale. And then on top of it, this stupid Joe doesn't know when to just shut up and accept his licks. He tells him, "Oh, I've had these dreams where you're going to be worshiping me." And then this other dream, he even tells his parents, "Oh, I had this dream where you're going to be worshiping me." So not only is he getting his siblings on his bad side, he's getting his parents on his bad side. Doubtful he even had these dreams, but he's sitting there, saying, "I had these dreams where you're going to be worshiping me one day." Well, of course, that's going to be like, "We hate you, kid." So one day they planned on killing him. They saw him coming. He was supposed to be bringing them, so, helping them with the livestock. They saw him approaching them. And now he's 17 years old at the time. 17 back then, you were a grown-ass person, okay? And if you were a woman, you were probably already having kids by now. You're probably raped repeatedly and having kids by now. So he goes out there to meet his brothers. His brothers plan to kill him. Now Reuben, his half-brother, the oldest, actually I think Reuben was the oldest son because that was Leah's firstborn, and Leah was the one who gave him, who had the first child of all the sex slaves Jake had. Leah was the first one to have a son. I should say a son, because remember, males are the only important people in the Bible, at least in the Old Testament. So Reuben tells his brother, no, let's not do that. Let's just throw him in this pit. And Reuben's idea was, I'll come back later and I'll get him out of the pit. So they did that. They threw him in the pit. Now I would like to note here what happened. I guess Reuben took off. I'm not sure exactly how this went down. I don't remember. Okay, it says he must not take his life. They stripped him of his own. Okay, here, this is what it is. Now the New American Bible, which is the one I have open right now, it says, Joseph came up to them. They stripped him of his long tunic. Now, in the King James Version, because remember, I read both King James and the New American before I make this video. The King James said this long tunic was the colorful coat that we know. Joseph in the amazing Technicolor coat. New American doesn't say that. It says long tunic. King James says colorful coat. And even in the King James, I don't remember it ever stating that, I'm getting these names mixed up, that Jacob/Israel made it for his son Joseph. Okay, I don't recall reading that. So this thing that, I don't recall the King James even saying anybody made it for him. So that was something Christianity added. Some preacher or something somewhere along the line made that up. And it just caught on. But they took this long tunic, they dipped it in, wait a minute, no, they didn't dip it in blood yet, I don't think, yeah. Well, they saw some people coming by and they thought, well, let's sell them into slavery. And so they sold Joe to some, Ishmaelites. They sold it for 20 pieces of silver. Then somehow he got sold later on he got sold to Potiphar. But in the meantime, his brothers said, well, even though he's not dead, let's make it like he's dead. So we don't have to deal with him anymore. And with our father at least. And so they cut up some goats and they dipped this long roby thing in some blood and showed it to his father. It's like, oh, an animal must have got him. And Jacob / Israel is in mourning. And that's where we stop here. Jake / Israel's in mourning. Joe is now a slave to Potiphar, and it says a courtier. Potiphar is a courtier to Pharaoh and his chief steward. Not well written. Kind of seems like maybe a little run-on sentencey there. I don't know what a courtier is, and I don't know what a chief steward is. But he's not another thing that's mistaken. And somehow along the way, some pastor or something misrepresented this. I was always told Joseph was directly under Pharaoh. He was, I don't know, a court jester or something, directly to Pharaoh. I've heard the name Potiphar, but what I was taught was not that Joseph was under Potiphar. So anyways, now that I'm reading this as an atheist, I'm really reading this. I'm not just skimming over it, and I'm not just trying to justify the rape and the slavery that God condones. And God promotes it. God just doesn't just condone it. He advocates for it. And now I can see God as the dick he truly is. I don't have to make excuses or soften the blows that God gives to the women in here. And it's almost, I would say it's 99% misogynistic. And maybe 1% of the negativity or inequality going to men. Like, yeah, Laban got his little feelings hurt because he got some stuff stolen from me. I'd rather get my stuff stolen from me than get raped constantly as a sex slave. So, thank you for listening. I'll show you again one more time these little, they're not edible gummies, but they're gummy-like little crocodile alligators. And they float in water. You get 20 of them for $10. I haven't seen these anywhere. Like I said, they're not edible. I've seen the edible ones, the edible gummies online, but I haven't seen any of these ever online or in a brick and mortar store. They even have the little, I don't know if you can see that, the little bumpies on the back. Oh, and look at that, they got lines on the bottom. I guess you could use them, if you're not using them for baits, you could use them for, I don't know, maybe some Halloween decorations. Cute, cute, cute. And they're 3 inches long from head to tail, and their tail's a little squiggly if you notice. Their tails kind of give like a little zigzag to them. Bye.